Good morning, everybody. This is Zach Says It Again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and today is a very special day. After 13 years of reviewing off and on for the Barter Theatre, this is my first time interviewing a Barter Theatre actor, and what an actor I have with me today. One of my favorite and one of the most popular fan favorites of Barter Theatre goers. Mr. Terrance Jackson is here with me this morning, and we are going to talk about his fantastic role of Tom Robinson in To Kill a Mockingbird. Thank you so much, Terrance, for being with me this morning. It's an honor to meet you and talk with you.
Thanks for having me, Zach. I'm honored to be here and excited to talk more about the play.
Yes, and what a play it is. To Kill a Mockingbird is, along with the rest of America and the world, is one of my favorite stories of all time. It is regarded as probably the most beloved piece of American literature in history, at least certainly in the 20th century. As a writer, we all want, as writers, to be like Harper Lee. We want to write one piece that's so relevant to American history that it lasts for 60 years plus beyond its time, and we write one book that's so successful we never have to write again. It's our dream to be Harper Lee, but one of the things like that only come along once in a lifetime, and that is what To Kill a Mockingbird is. And you play the role of Tom Robinson, who, if there are like three people left in the world that don't know the story of To Kill a Mockingbird or who Tom Robinson is the African-American male set in the 1930s. It was a 1960 novel set, I think, in 1935, something like that, just after the stock market crash. And he is wrongfully accused of raping a white girl and is convicted. And you play Tom Robinson, who is a very key figure in American literature. What does playing the role of Tom Robinson mean to you personally? I know that's a loaded question. You can take that any way you want.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so Tom Robinson to me, Zach, is it's like Othello, right? It has the same amount of weight to me as when I played Othello, in the way of, Othello on the page has, 4 or 5 times as many words as Tom Robinson on the page, right?
Exactly.
Obviously, you were just at the play. Really, Tom Robinson is in one scene, which is the trial. Mm-hmm. You hear a lot about Tom Robinson, but actually hearing Tom Robinson's words, you have one scene where you really hear that. But the weight of the character, to me, was the exact same as Othello when it comes to me being a black male. The weight of it felt the same, like in the way of a dream, as an actor, being able to play Othello one day. I felt the same way about Tom Robinson. I didn't know when or if it would come up, but I knew that if I got to tackle the role, it was going to be significant for me and also a milestone in my career as an actor, just because it's one of those roles where it's like, it's an iconic role. Like you said, it's a really famous book. And it's a beloved movie as well. Mm-hmm. And the character of Tom Robinson is just iconic. And so, I'm just honored that I was asked to play the role at Barter Theatre. Mm-hmm. We've done To Kill a Mockingbird. I believe this is the 3rd production of it in Barter's 90-year history. And so I'm excited to be able to add my name to the list of actors who've been able to play the role of Tom Robinson. And But man, it's a challenge. You know, that trial scene is difficult, and I'm sure we'll probably get into it. But it's a hard scene, you know, to be able to do that night after night and relive, you know, this unfortunate situation for this man's life, you know, and he's 25, you know, and of course in the 1930s, 25, you know, felt a little bit older, you know,
right,
just because of their life expectancy, but
right.
But he was 25. He had a wife. He had 3 kids, and you know, he's on trial for doing something that he didn't do, knowing that the outcome is it's probably not gonna be positive. But
right.
What Katie Brown, our director, and I worked on, and even talking with Nick Piper, who plays Atticus Finch, we've got to all the way up until the judge says the verdict, Zach. Like we've got to think that there's a chance, you know?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how it felt for y'all in the audience. I mean, that's tricky, right? Because I know everybody knows what's coming. But just the other night, I think when y'all were there, or it might have been the next day, we had a matinee.
I was there Saturday afternoon. I was there the very first performance.
That's right. You were there first performance. So yesterday, we had a performance, and when the verdict came out, there was audible gasps in the house, you know, and it shocked me a little bit because it was a great reminder that, one, not everybody knows the story of To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right.
And 2, even if they do know, it's still shocking.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
It's still shocking.
And for me, it was interesting that you said you had to believe there was a chance, because I feel like Atticus believed there was a chance. I feel like Jim and Scout and Dill believed there was a chance. But I feel like Tom Robinson knew. Tom Robinson knew that there's the line that Atticus says, Tom Robinson knew he was a dead man the moment Mayella screamed. And I felt like that he knew what his fate was, but he was going to get up. His integrity was so strong that he was going to get up and he was going to tell the truth anyway.
100%.
You know,
100%.
He knew he was going down, but he was going down righteously.
Right, 100%. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what I felt with Tom Robinson. And what I thought was so terrific about the role and the way you played it, you have an obvious, terrific sense of humor, and I think the reason that we all love you as we do is your wonderful comic relief. And you know, when we see Terrance in a play, Bella always looks over the playbill, my daughter, and points to you and says, "Oh, there's Terrance. There's my favorite actor. We're gonna have a good time tonight." You know, she depends on that comic relief, and this for you was a complete departure. I mean, as you said, there's only one scene with Tom Robinson, but it is iconic equally, I think, with Atticus's closing speech. Everybody identifies the movie, and I'm a big fan of the movie too. I'm partial to Gregory Peck's Atticus, a Barter alumni, by the way. We need to mention that.
That's right.
And you know, he's just one of the all-time greats, everybody's favorite. And I thought Brock Peters was phenomenal in the speech that he delivered as Tom Robinson, with the emotion and the honesty that he portrayed. That was deserving of an Oscar nomination in itself, in my opinion. But I think just the way that you played that so straight, and I mean, as you said, you know that his fate is sealed, but you delivered that with such heart, and and to hear that it's like an ideal role for you, and and forgive me, I hope that I do not say this with ignorance. I hope I say this with the pertinence that it needs to be said for you and for the African American people. But when you are playing, may I ask how old you are?
I'm 32.
32. Okay, you're just a little younger than me. You're just a little older than Tom Robinson.
Right.
So as a younger black male who is playing a black male who lived, let's say, almost 100 years ago, what do you feel that you need to bring to the table, given that time period and the way?
Yeah.
And you understand what I'm asking?
I do.
I hope it doesn't sound too ignorant. I'm trying to get a poignant point across here.
No. It totally makes sense, and it was a different time, right? And so, and I think to your point, right, it's everything from just saying yes sirs and yes ma'ams, and even though we here in the South we still refer to elders as sir and ma'am.
Right.
It was a little bit different, obviously, back then. That was a different type of respect.
And it was a different connotation then.
Correct. And so
it was demanded, not warranted.
Correct. And so just even in that, right, it was different in that context. But a lot of stuff that we talked about, Zach, was the idea of, in that trial scene, there's that fine line, especially when I'm talking with Gilmer, who is the other attorney.
Right. Justin Tyler Lewis.
Yeah, played by Justin Tyler Lewis, and I think he does an excellent job. And
he does.
And we're all great friends, and it's hard because that scene is you kind of have to put the friendship to the side.
Yeah, you can't be Mr. Gilmer's friend in that
correct,
scene.
Correct. But there's that fine line of, like you said so beautifully earlier, and it's exactly what we're going for. Is Tom is trying to tell the truth, right? But in telling the truth, he also knows, Atticus knows, even the entire black ensemble who's watching knows that in that truth telling, there still has to be a level of, though there's going to be a ton of honesty, I cannot come back at Gilmer too hard, because he can use that right to the jury to my disadvantage, which he does. He tries to do that multiple times.
And he knows that. He's trying to provoke you to do that so that you will do that, because if you do that, you being a black male, if you do that in 1930s Alabama, your fate's going to be sealed already and his job's done.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And Jim and Scout, they even ask Atticus, they say, are we going to win this? And Atticus says no, but we've got to give it all we've got. Mm-hmm. And we're going to really switch gears here now, because there is a character in that, and they're all tragic characters. This does not end happily for anybody. Not just Tom Robinson. It does not end happily for Male Yule. It does not end. It does not end happily for Atticus and Jim and Scout and Dill. There's not a happy ending for anybody. And me, as you know, you've met me, and I'm disabled, and I identify with the Boo Radley character, but and I have this terrible fear of one day being institutionalized, and some part of me is always worried. Is this the day that my wife's not going to be able to take care of me, and I would have to go to a place like that? But I have to bring strength within myself to say I have a daughter to raise. And I'm a husband, and I matter just as much as any father and husband that stands on their own 2 feet. But oftentimes to fight that, it is me and my wife against the world. Everybody has a character that they connect to, that speaks to them and hits them in the core. And for me, it's Boo Radley.
Big time. And I thank you for even sharing that, because I think it's just as big a part of the play, right? And for some people, who is the Mockingbird, right?
Exactly.
And for you, what do you think? Who's the Mockingbird to you? There are multiple characters, I guess.
Right. Well, I identify with Mr. Radley because, we don't know really what Boo did. We don't know really if he stabbed his parents in the leg. But what we do know is Mr. Radley said, my son will not be in an institution. And in those days, particularly, if you were born with any kind of malformity, whether you had any mental impairments or not, which thank God I do not, at least not yet anyway. You were still going to a place like that. It didn't matter if you were, mentally challenged or not. In those days, if you were born, you would go to an asylum. And to me, an asylum is no different than a nursing home or something like that. In any kind of institution where we are removed from society, it should not happen. And we are faced every day with not having that choice because there is not adequate sufficient care for disabled people, and it's cheaper to keep us at home. It's easier on the government to keep us at home than for them to throw me in a home and charge like I should be put in a 5-star hotel. And it's the same thing that happens to the elderly. But then there's that character, and then there's the Boo Radley character, and we're in 2023, and we're looking back to 1960 to that book, and the book is looking back to 1935, and in so many places we are no further than we were almost 100 years ago. And that is that's really what tugs at the heartstrings. There are still those who are abused, physically, sexually, emotionally. There are still those who are treated. There are still those who are treated unfairly because of the color of their skin or the condition of their physical state or their mental state or whatever that they have no control over. And this is what we're still dealing with. And that's why I wanted to know your personal struggle as far as Tom Robinson, because I don't know what it's like to live as a black man any more than you know what it's like to live as a disabled man. But we both have stories to tell, and when it comes down to it, we both are human, and our trials and tribulations, it may be a different story, but it's really not. We're all human. We all struggle, and human life in all forms, whether it's Boo Radley, Tom Robinson, Jim Scout and Dale Atticus, we're all human life, and human life is precious. It is fleeting. It is wonderful. It is miserable. it is all those things, and it is to be embraced. And I think that's what the lesson of To Kill a Mockingbird is. But what I have a problem with, and this is what I want to know from you, could you tell me, there are some schools that I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, that they've taken To Kill a Mockingbird out of schools today, teaching in schools. So how relevant do you think To Kill a Mockingbird is today? And if it needs updating to the modern world, how so?
Wow. I mean, I think it's definitely relevant, right? I think when we start looking at, racial inequality, injustices, you look at those themes that surround the book, in the play. I mean, a lot of that stuff is still happening today. And I think obviously just with your own experience of just how much you resonate with the story, it's obviously still relevant today, right? It's still, we can each still see something, or we can still see somebody in the play that we resonate with. And I think that's the mark of a great story, is that anybody, whether that's people who see themselves in Bob Ewell, or whatever,
right?
Anybody can see themselves in this story. Now, the thing that is tricky is we do know that this is from the point of view of the main character, Scout, who is played by Lydia Zabit in our production, and it's from Scout's point of view, the point of view of a small young white girl, and so there's things that she's going to be able to see and also not see. And I know that Katie Brown, our director and the producing artistic director of Barter Theatre, really talked a lot about that in her mission for the play, about what is it that we see and what is it that we don't see, and how we see them in perspectives. And I think what's interesting is when we talk about the Black perspective in this play, a lot of that is seen through what Scout sees and hears, right? And so, and some of that is kind of like what would they have said in front of Scout, what really could have happened. Like I'm thinking about, for example, the Calpurnia and Reverend Sykes scene, right, where they're having that conversation, and she's asking him about, what happened to Helen, who is Tom's wife, and why no one wants to give her a job, and what did Tom do? And Calpurnia says, you need to ask your father about a lot of this stuff, right? But it's fascinating, and Reverend Sykes says some things, but he doesn't necessarily say too many things in front of Scout. And if anything needed to be updated, or things that I think would be interesting, is to get the real perspectives of how those potential, especially the Black characters, felt about certain things. Because we're just not going to see that, because they're not going to speak as openly about some of those things in front of young Scout. You know what I mean? And Calpurnia, I have to say, was my favorite character. Rita Cole just did her brilliantly. Oh, 100%.
Absolutely brilliantly. And another one that I absolutely loved was, and I don't have her name in front of me, the lady who played Helen Robinson. Her emotion.
Marissa, what a tricky and what a tough role she has to play. And I think she does it beautifully, yeah.
And how well she does it. What is the most important aspect of this play to you? What do you want people to come away with thinking when they see this play?
That's a great question. I think I want people to be able to just understand that injustices have happened, racial inequality has happened for a long time, and that, like you referenced earlier, though it's almost been 100 years, these things still happen. Tom Robinson, it was said he was shot 17 times.
Right.
Trying to escape, prison.
And why was it necessary to shoot that man 17 times when you know there are white people that are guilty of much greater crimes that are walking free today? I'm not talking about today.
Very much so. And so it's amazing how the stories haven't really changed much, over that time. And I think sometimes it can be easier for people to take in a story and heed the lessons when it's set in a different time period.
Right. In your opinion, what can we do to be better citizens? What can we do to be more respectful? What lessons do we need to learn, in your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, and it's such a fine balance too, because my first thought was believe people, believe Black people. But also it's tricky because in any other situation, I feel like I would wholeheartedly would say, believe women, believe Mayella, And so it's tricky because it's like, I don't want to negate believing Mayella, but I also want to, or any white woman that was on the stand saying that someone had attacked her.
Mm-hmm.
But it's tricky because in this particular case, we know what really happened, and that it didn't happen. But I would say believe Black people, when they're saying they didn't do something.
Or just I mean, it's if you are a good reader of people, it's pretty easy to tell when somebody's telling the truth and when somebody isn't.
Right.
I mean, if you just pay attention, you can tell if somebody's lying or if somebody's telling the truth.
Right.
And as Atticus said, he had nothing in his heart but pity for Mayella, but it had nothing to do with what Mayella was saying. Mayella was also lying, and he knew that.
Yeah.
And so, again, it was not a happy ending for anybody. But
no, and they talk a lot about, seeing from other people's point of views, walking in other people's shoes, just looking at people for a chance and giving people a chance. And I think those are all just ways of saying, hey, let's really check our own biases.
Mm-hmm.
Let's really look at our own perspectives and really think about it. Those are just different ways of saying those words that now we have names of, implicit bias and all those types of things like that. That they just didn't have necessarily words for them in 1935.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, in our own ways, we all have prejudices. We may have reasons why we have prejudices, but we've all got them. And we do need to look at that. And the last question I will leave you with, and I promise I kept you way longer than I said you were going to. Thank you for taking so much time with me.
Of course, Zach.
What do you think that seeing the Barter Theatre play offers us with the To Kill a Mockingbird story that you couldn't get anywhere else? From reading the book, from seeing the movie, what makes seeing the play at Barter special?
For me, what we offer is, I think what we do really well at Barter is we build community really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you come to see our production, you're going to see everybody on stage who loves each other, but who still has to tell this hard story. Now, and I think that is something that's different than you're going to see anywhere else, is that everybody on that stage at Barter, we have worked together, and we've worked together in multiple different situations. And I think because we know each other so well, we're able to tell this difficult story in that way. No, you're great, Zach. And I just wanted to say I appreciate you for coming to all the shows that you do and for writing about us and just always being so kind and generous and also honest in your writing. You know, that means a lot to us, and it whether it's a positive review or not, right? We appreciate the feedback, and we just appreciate you for being such a lover of the region, number one, and a lover of the theater and what we do. You know, patrons and like you really remind me of why and the importance of what we do and the importance of theater and the importance of storytelling. And so, yeah, I just can't thank you enough for asking me to be on your podcast, and I'm honored, and I'm a big fan of you and your family, and yeah, I hope to see y'all soon.
Well, you brought tears to my eyes, brother.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Terrance. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.